Well, I'll do that then. I'll say, hi, I'm Hannah. I'm mum of Ollie.
Hi, I'm Mike, dad of Ollie, and Ollie had a transplant for his liver when he was 1 because he had a genetic condition referred to as hyperammonemia.
I'm Roberta and I'm the parent of Amelia Green.
I'm Edward, I'm Amelia's dad. She was diagnosed with biliary atresia. At Christmas Eve of that year she was put on the transplant list, and on the 2nd of March 2009 she had a liver transplant.
I'm Kevin.
Anna Elliott.
We're the proud parents of Leighton and Isla. Leighton was born with biliary atresia.
And he underwent liver transplant on 9th of September 2016.
So biliary atresia, as we found out, is a congenital condition. It damages the biliary tract, which excretes bile from the liver, and due to the damage of the biliary tract, it means all the bile and waste product stays within the liver and damages the liver, which leads ultimately to a transplant.
Ollie was diagnosed with a condition called hyperammonemia. Specifically, he had a condition referred to as CPS1, carbonyl phosphate synthetase 1. So his body didn't break down ammonia.
It was part of the urea cycle disorders. There's 6 of them. And he had one. He probably had the second rarest out of the 6. The most commonly one is OTC that a lot of people have.
In simple terms, many people have heard of ammonia. Ammonia is quite a poisonous, toxic substance. It's used in farming and agriculture. If your body can't break that down well, his body was being polluted or poisoned.
A normal child's ammonia should be less than 50, and Ollie's, I think the highest we had it up was 200, and if it goes any higher than sort of 200, 250, you can start causing brain damage. So your liver doesn't break down the ammonia and get rid of it through urine. It stores it in your body and then goes back into your blood system and does brain damage.
So when she was tiny, they gave her an operation called a Kasai, which should have sends the bile off in a different direction, so it stops backing up into the liver, so the liver doesn't die off. But in her case, it was too late. It had already damaged the liver too much.
It was never a case of if, it was a case of when we were told.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
The Kasai had never really, well, it had taken, but it didn't work how they wanted it to work. The drugs that she was on weren't working how they really wanted them to work, and it was obvious to us that it was a very slow sort of downhill process, wasn't it? And then when she got the secondary infection, it was like, oh, this is going to be it. And when they told us, it's always a shock, but it wasn't out of the blue shock,
But almost a bit of a relief, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like there is somewhere to go with this, because she was so poorly. I mean, you only had to look at her and you could see that she was really poorly. They won't ask you to become a live donor. You have to put yourself forward and ask them if you can become a live donor. So it was quite lucky actually that we bumped into the couple that we did that had just been through the process.
And at the beginning we tried to live normal life, but Leighton was unwell every time he went near someone. So we just lived in a bubble.
So to give a bit of history, our first son was disabled and wheelchair bound and had several complications. He didn't qualify for a full transplant. I think we had dealt with the mental part of having transplants at that point with him. So knowing that and seeing that Ollie had the same condition, we were potentially hopeful that could be a resolution to his condition, that if we could progress to have a successful transplant, that it should and could change his life for the better. So although nervous, reasonably optimistic that that could make a difference to his life.
Here he goes. I'm going to be Buster, come here! Here! Stupid!
it was
everything
a tough
you did
time, wasn't
revolved around it, even just going out for a meal. It
Yeah.
was like taking the pump with you, and you know, you'd be sat there at the table sort of rigging her up, and it was different, but it got to be the norm for a little while.
Yeah.
You just accepted that that's
Yeah.
what it was, you know, and getting up in the night to feed her. And
At that point, we'd actually also been told that she wouldn't make her first birthday if she didn't have a liver transplant. So it kind of spurs you on a bit, doesn't it?
yeah, it was, if you don't do it, she's going to die. So that was the only thing in our minds, you know, like, if we don't do this, that's it. So yeah, it was, that was the mindset, you know.
Unfortunately, at times it felt more like a job. We would deliberately, so one of us would go in the morning, one of us would be there later. We'd try and do one handover each. One of us would go off into town for a morning or an afternoon. Not all the time, just once every couple of weeks, and I think that, again, with hindsight, I think that helped us enormously.
Yeah. So I carried her down and just handed her over and just sort of said, look after her. So
And had a bit of a weight on your hands.
yeah, not very nice watching him walk off the ward. It's like you've got a baby there that you're trying to look after and sort of want to be supportive for your husband, but it's out of your hands, isn't it?
Like I in my head, I can't put the picture quite clear together.
But yeah, signing the consent forms is something that obviously clearly you know you have to do, because you have to put his life into the specialist's hands, but at the same time, you know, there's a slim chance of the outcome being very different. So yeah, I mean.
We were very, very nervous. We had put our first end forward for a type of transplant. The reality is that whether or not that's because of our call, unfortunately he didn't make it. Unfortunately he grew his wheelchair rings and died. Of course that's going to stay with you on the day when your next child gets the call up. Of course that's in your head. I remember very vividly being in the ambulance, really hoping and praying that goes well.
They said the ambulance is going to take forever to come, and it came almost within half an hour, and they whizzed us through. It was like a whiz. They were driving so fast, and I think all the emotions and everything, and I was throwing up all the way there.
I was very watchful of my wife, of Hannah, and how it was going to be for those first few days, going up there, seeing the intensive care, seeing the places we'd been to in dark times. I was very conscious that our first few days when we got the call up with Kieran didn't go very well. He was a very, very poorly man. I think he was probably more poorly than Kings and the intensive care and ourselves, as specialists actually, fully appreciated at the time.
It just got to be like, well, no, we're doing it, and that was it. You know, I was more nervous with having the tests done than I was going for the operation.
But I mean, obviously he's just a hero anyway. Like, it's like what he'd just done was just amazing, and he'd been so like not blasé, but so cool about it all. And it's like, well, no, I'm doing it, and he did. There was never any question about it, and at no point did he look nervous or anything, which was amazing to me.
So for the first few hours, it was like, okay, surgeon's done his bit.
I think it was just nice to have him, you know, you knew that he was back on the ward and you could get to see him again and things like that, and just hold his hand and
Stroke a cheek.
stroke a cheek, hold a hand, and just be there with him.
So yeah.
You could definitely see the difference though. He wasn't like as yellow. He started changing colour, I don't know, straight away. He was a shade he was a less yellow, kind of hour by hour. His colour changed so much. So that was a positive thing.
And obviously, I think and you probably get sick of me doing it, I've always got my camera out taking photos, because I always did that with Kieran, and I think that's always just rubbed off, having loads and loads of photos, because if anything happened, I'd want as much documented as I could.
Yeah, we had to learn to be parents, I suppose. I mentioned earlier about our lives had felt like we were on the job almost, rather than doing parenting. Both boys were tube fed, both had gastrostomies, jejunostomies, all sorts of ostomies, for feed pumps, etc. Ollie, in his early, well, pretty much from birth almost, was tube fed, and within a couple of days, like I said, Ollie really recovered really well. And then within a couple of days, we were being asked what to feed him. Well, we hadn't done this before. He hadn't been given food for quite almost.
We ended up doing lots of play therapy with food to get him used to it as well.
Basically normal. We've never wrapped her in cotton wool. She's led the life of a normal, even from, like say, from a 1-year-old, she's done whatever she's wanted to do. We didn't like, oh, she can't do this and she can't do that. At the end of the day, despite what she went through as a baby, it's meant we've made some lovely family memories, things to look back on and things that you laugh and smile about now. All right, at the time, some of the things weren't very good.
On Leighton's liver transplant anniversary, he asked his teacher for a little bit of time to stand in front of his class, and he talks about what happened to him. He says that there was a boy that passed away and saved quite a few lives, and he was one of them, and he shows them the scar and just talks about what happened. And he always says he never gets any response. There is a great silence in the class.
I think
it's expected.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good thing. The kids are listening, and at that age, they're not always listening. So I
Quite
think
a big thing to take.
I think it's a good thing. He's got that's his proud scar moment. He likes showing it off.
After Ollie had his transplant, it took us almost 2 years to pen the letter to them. I can't even tell you why it took 2 years. Hands up, it shouldn't. That's not a positive on our behalf. However, after a couple of years, we did write to them, and the letter has to be checked and authorised before being sent to them. So we send it to the hospital, and the hospital then send it on. And then a few months after writing our letter, we had a reply back from them, which was really sweet. It was a very open letter. They let us know about the person that the transplant came from, which was their daughter. She had a conversation with them that she wanted to be a donor if anything went wrong. She had expressed her wishes. People out see the transplant posts. The thing is, they share your wishes. She had shared her wish to be a donor. She was a young lady. She was 17 at the time, but was brave enough to have that conversation. And so her parents weren't, when unfortunately their daughter died, her parents weren't in question about what they wanted to do. They wanted to make a difference to other people. In their words, if you're prepared to take an organ, you should be prepared to give. It may be a motto in life as opposed to organ transplants, but anyway, so they wrote back to us. They put some pictures in there. They shared their journey, and we shared a bit of ours.
And we met the March 2020, just the weekend before lockdown. We just had a lovely day walking around. They got to see Ollie. We talked about Ollie. We talked about their daughter Miriam, and everything we'd been through. And we talked obviously a little bit about Kieran. And they send Ollie a birthday card and a little present every year. They send him a Christmas card and a gift. At transplant anniversary, it's the anniversary of them losing their daughters, so we usually send them a card with that, just saying we're thinking of you at this time, because we'll always be indebted to them. They'll always be part of our family now.
They're very inspiring people.